We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. And you've just crossed over into the trend zone. Dave here with Casey. We are the football dudes. Are you ready, brother?
Yes, I am.
Next stop, the trend zone. And today it is Wednesday, September 18th. It is 67 degrees and sunny here in Santa Monica, California. Quite lovely indeed. In today's episode, we'll talk the injury bug, getting a little nibble going here early in the season. 0-2, 2-0 teams, and of course, some fantasy action, and of course, all of the exciting football games coming up in week 3 of the NFL. But before all that, Casey, please tell the people that you've got a nug for them.
I totally have a nug because see right
See?
there it says Casey's Tasty Nug. So you know that I'm holding. Dave, what do we like about the NFL? It's so toy. It's
Yep.
toy like a toiger. Okay.
All
Close
right.
games already this season. 22 of the 32 games have all been decided by one score or less. That's 8 points. That's the second most through 2 weeks in NFL history. And a little bonus nug, Dave. 9 teams enter week 3 2-0. The Vikings, the Saints, the Seahawks. One other team is on that list. The
Hey, that would
Chargers. Why is that special? Because all of those teams missed the playoffs last year, this year through 2 weeks, undefeated. And we'll talk about the bizarro teams in that stat a little bit later on.
That's right. All right. Super delicious nugular there, Casey. Sweet.
Hey,
The NFL is always exciting down to the last drop, right?
that's
So,
right.
ladies and gentlemen, the Trend Zone is available for subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. It is absolutely free of charge. Subscribe, download now. Thank you so much. Case, let's move it into the top trending stories here. Getting things started with the bumming injury roundup. And man, this thing, it's hit some premier players in the league.
Yeah, and for sure, probably the biggest, not in stature, but the biggest name on that list is Tua. And that was a total bummer. And I think the freakiest part of it was how the hit didn't seem that big. He just kind of ran
Yeah.
into Hamlin there, which was weird in a sense itself. And he just went down. So Tua's going to be on the IR, miss at least 4 games. But dude,
Ugh.
that's like a 26, 27-year-old millionaire. He's got generational wealth. I know he loves to play football. I know he said he's coming back, but at some point, dude, it is not worth it.
I can't disagree with you at all, dude. He does have the money to take care of himself and his family and all kinds of friends and extended family and stuff. And you got to ask yourself, is it really worth it? Obviously, he's going to have to think things over here and make the decision. But man, like you said, it didn't seem like an egregious hit. He did get
Mm-mm.
hit in a way where he sort of smashed his head to the side. But again, I think it seems like the cumulative effect of concussions is one issue. Additionally, the likelihood for a recurrence of the injury seemingly another issue to be concerned about here. And if that's not the last one, it's probably the second to last one.
Yeah, dude. And we're not even talking about the other injuries like the hip that he got at Alabama. He might not have an NFL body.
Yep.
We're seeing this with Hollywood Brown. He had the injury. He's going to be out for the season, having the surgery. And some cats can make it in college, but it's a whole different deal here. And we're not even talking about brain stuff, just might not have the body type for it. But he's got to take a real hard look at what he wants his future to be. He is an exciting player. He's got a ton of talent, but at some point, I don't know that's worth it. He can find a way to get back to the game. He could go back to Hawaii and teach high school football, or he could do whatever, stay in Miami. So it's a lot of speculation at this point, but if I was a relative of his, I would be a little bit worried about that.
Yeah, I would say take a ton of time
Mm-hmm.
making the decision and making sure you're good to go if you decide to come back. And then
Yeah.
you cannot take hits.
Mm-mm.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
All right, there were some other significant injuries, Casey, as well.
Yeah, Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs. He had a fractured tibia. He's out at least 6 to 8 weeks. That might be a full season thing. I think they brought in Kareem Hunt today. I'm not sure if they signed him or not. Samaje Perine they got before the season started too. So we'll see what they do there. That's a bummer because Pacheco really makes that offense go. Cooper Kupp, he got injured. He had an ankle injury. They thought they were going to put him on IR, but they decided not to today. So maybe that's a good sign for him. And then Dave, not quite as big, but just big names. Joe Mixon, we saw the ankle get run over on Sunday night. They're projecting him to be back week 5. Justin Jefferson had the quad. Tajay Spear had an ankle injury. Jeff Wilson Jr., oblique. Evan Ingram, hamstring. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Dude, like 4 of these guys are on my fantasy team. And Taysom Hill of the Saints. So none of these are projected to last more than a couple weeks, but these are all big-time starters in the NFL. So it's bad news for all of their teams.
Yeah. Back to Pacheco real fast. I've said, I don't know how many times, and I said it on Sunday, the way that dude runs like a complete freaking maniac, I can't imagine why he doesn't get hurt. And sure enough, he did get hurt.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to jinx him in any way, but I
You
mean,
might
the
have.
guy is an absolute animal and he's a Chief. So what can you do? It was an accidental jinx.
Maybe that'll give more love to my guy Kelsey, who's not done anything so far for my fantasy team, but we'll get there in a minute. We'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move it on, Casey. We're talking about the 0-2. There's a lot of teams that are just 1-1, just right there in the middle. But then there's the 0-2 teams thinking playoffs, but the 0-2 teams right now, it seems like, is it worse than it is? You know what I'm saying? This is like, is it a death sentence?
It's not anymore. I mean, since they've added the 17th game, it's changed it a little bit. But since 1990, only 31 of the 270 teams that have started 0-2 have made the playoffs. That's a little over 10%, 11%. So it's not as bad as it was, but it is not a good sign. But as we've seen, dude, the NFL, it is such a week-to-week league. I know we live and die each week, but just what you did next week does not necessarily determine next week. So plenty of time to turn it around, but it's not the best start.
It is not the best start indeed.
And dude, there's a couple. Oh, go ahead.
No, go if you like.
I was going to say some of the teams on that list: the Bengals,
yes,
the Ravens,
yes,
the Shags, the Colts. Those were all playoff teams from last year.
Right. No question about that, dude. And also you've got 0-2 Rams that were a pretty impressive playoff team last year as well on the list of 0-2 teams. So it's not a death sentence, but it is certainly you're digging yourself a hole and it's tough to get out of. And in this league where if you don't win your division, you're up against so many teams for those wild card spots, and those crucial losses that travel back into week 1 and week 2, you're going to regret those down the road when it's down to that last week of football and you're struggling for a spot.
Big time.
Speaking of teams targeting the playoffs, there's so many teams stoked right now that are 2-0, Casey.
Yeah, we're talking in the AFC, the Bills, the Steelers, the Texans, our Los Angeles Chargers, and the Kansas City Chiefs. And in the NFC, the Vikings, everybody had that, right? The Saints, everybody thought they would be undefeated. The Bucks and the Seahawks. Crazy.
Wow. Yeah. That division with the Saints and the Bucks and now with the Falcons getting a W, it's looking like a pretty dang good division right now early on.
Oh, heck yeah. Wow. Wow.
All right, let's take a look at fantasy, Casey. We'll get things started with Total Fantasy Domination.
Oh, yeah, baby. And talk about domination. How about my guy, Kyler Murray, dude? He was absolutely balling last week. He had a jersey go to the Hall of Fame and a game ball. Why? Because 266 pass yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 59 rush yards. And have you seen that shot, the overhead of the scramble and the throw yet? It's floating on the X. It's amazing, dude. Oh, Kyler, dude. You forget how exciting this guy is. They have a good coach there. And I think we're going to talk about one of his weapons on the outside in this, but just great to see this guy healthy and back at it, dude. He is a skill set independent of everybody else.
Beautiful pass.
Yeah.
Throws a beautiful pass, doesn't he? Yeah, the telestrator doing the squigglies was hilarious for that scramble play. All right. Up next, it's the running back, Alvin Kamara, dude. You know this guy well. Unfortunately, he was on your fantasy team, but playing against your reality team for his 115 yards, 3 rushing TDs, 65 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. He had a phenomenal weekend.
that did make that beat down a little bit more tolerable.
Right.
Just a little bit. I'm such a sicko. And then, of course, we talked about him, dude. Marvin Harrison Jr. had the quiet start in week 1, not so quiet week 2, 130 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, and how about George Kittle at tight end? He got himself 76 receiving yards and a touchdown to rack it up for the leading tight end fantasy-wise in the weekend. All right, Case, the fantasy go-backs of the week. This is where we go back in time and we say, what if? What if I'd have made a subtle change? Could things have been different?
For me, no. Every player on my bench, altogether, 5 bench spots totaled 14 points. And
Ooh.
as you mentioned, Alvin Kamara was on my team. So I completely destroyed the ogre. Never Algo. He went down in a lump.
That's
Oh,
just
the
good
bigger
coaching.
they are, the
Good
harder
coaching.
they fall. Yeah.
Good.
How about you, Dave? How was yours?
Mine was good. I had a dominant weekend, although I've got some banged up dudes. But I had a nice weekend. I crushed the Greenbud Packers, but I came in second for the points, and that left me in second place for the money, which I'm very stoked about. However, if I'd have made a subtle change and put in Jerry Jeudy instead of either Cooper Kupp or Brandon Ayuk, I would have gotten first place and been the number one winner for the week. However, I'm not really complaining too much. I'll take what I can get. Pretty exciting. I do got a banged up team, though.
I would have told you, had you said, should I play Cooper Kupp or Jerry Jeudy? I would have told you Jeudy because I'm a good friend like that, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, Casey. I'll call you. I'll make sure I get a hold of you next time in advance.
For
All right,
sure.
Casey. We'll move it ahead to the Survivors 3 Strikes League. Of course, ours is a Survivor League, except the other league, which we both lost in the first weekend. So thank goodness we have the 3 strikes in our main league here. Talk about last week's most popular incorrect pick that destroyed a number of people around the world.
You must be talking about the Baltimore Ravens going down to the Las Vegas Raider and taking almost 30% of the country with them.
Ooh.
Unbelievable. Ravens had, I think, what was it, a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. This
They
is
were the Raiders of that game.
This is how they lose lately.
I know.
The last handful of years.
Mind-blowing, dude. It's
Yeah.
crazy. They're a toe away from beating the Chefs week 1. And then they have a 10-point lead that they just watch evaporate against the Raiders of all teams. And now they're sitting at 0-2. I feel sorry for the team they're playing this week. An angry Ravens team coming to town. You better watch out.
Uh-oh. Look out for that. Also, Casey, next week, there's a lot of good selections, apparently.
Yeah. Shockingly, the Raiders looking to do work again. That's the most popular pick, taking almost 27% of the country with them. And while we were on board with pick whoever is playing the Panthers, I would hold off on this one just because Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket, is going to be starting for the Panthers. And never trust a Raider when death is on the line, Dave. So, you know what I mean? I don't know. So I might look elsewhere for that one. The Bucks are playing the Broncos. That ought to be pretty good. I can't imagine Bo Nix goes down to the sombrero and gets it done. Buffalo over Jayville's a popular pick, but I believe those Shags beat them in England last year. So I'm liking Tampa, I think, to start this thing.
All right. I like that too. That would send Denver into an 0-3 tailspin to start the season. I would hate to mention that as a side product there.
Yeah, right.
All right. Let's go ahead and get it to the bulk of the show here. This is what it's all about, Casey. We're going to go ahead and preview week 3 of the NFL.
What did you say?
Yes, that's correct. We're going to go ahead and preview week 3 of the NFL season.
Week 3?
That's correct, sir.
It's slipping away.
It certainly is. Time flies when you're having fun, Casey, and this is an amazing start to this season so far. And we're going to get this week started on Thursday night with the New England Patriots at the New York Jets, a divisional game. This should be a good game. Both these teams playing pretty good football right now. Jets at home favored by 6.
Yeah, dude. And it's hard to say that they're a huge surprise just in there 1-1, but I really love the way the Patriots have played so far. They came out and beat the crap out of the Bengals in week 1, and had the Seahawks on the ropes last week. So I'm not sure that I trust that Jets defense yet. What we've seen is you can run all over them. Oh, yeah. And New England's got a running back, Ramondre Stevenson, who just likes to run all over people, playing great defense. Jacoby Brissett not making any mistakes. That's a formula for winning football games. But there is a ton of expectation on Aaron Rodgers and these New York Jets.
Yeah, and the Jets come into this one 1-1, having gotten the victory last week against the Titans. There, they sort of righted the ship a little bit, but it was nothing spectacular necessary from Rodgers. A nice performance, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns for Rodgers. Breece Hall put together a decent game, and Braylon Allen takes a little cut from my fantasy team. I had him for 1 week. I cut him. Boom, that guy had a nice performance too, getting into the end zone there. Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall again on the receiving end of some stuff too. So using the back side of the backfield a little bit, Aaron Rodgers, but good for this Jets team to get that first W out of the way and look for them again against this New England team. New England just makes them ugly. So let's see if, like you said, the Jets have been susceptible on defense, although they're good defense. They have been susceptible to the ground game. So this might be a nice, pretty close matchup.
Yeah, and on the short week. All right, Dave, it's a battle of undefeated AFC teams. It's our Los Angeles Chargers flying across the country to take on them Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are 1-point favorites at home. Talk about your fighting Harbaughs, brah.
Woo! Well, it was another dominant run game performance from the Chargers. This just in, the Chargers have a run game at least 2 weeks into the season. J.K. Dobbins looks healthy. He is only 25, although he's missed 2 full seasons with big injuries. Second straight week that he notched 130 plus yards rushing. I believe he has a 9.9 yard average right now per carry. So pretty impressive. Gus Edwards got in there and got 59 additional yards. Modest game from Justin Herbert, 70%. So efficient and 2 TDs, but a pick and a turnover, a fumble as well. Big news. Quentin Johnson showed up. He had 2 touchdowns, only 3 all of last year. Quentin Johnson with a nice performance and a really strong football game. All in all, Chargers defensively, super dominant against the Carolina Panthers. But that's 2 weeks in a row that the defense has really come to play. It looks like it's shaping into a solid Chargers defense.
Yeah, and they're playing a team that mirrors them really.
Very much
Harbaugh wants to do what the Steelers do, run the ball and play defense. And the Steelers played great defense last week. They were on the road, beat Denver 13-6. Tough day for Bo Nix, meet TJ Watt. It's a bad introduction. He didn't like it at all, would not really want to meet that guy again. But Pittsburgh, with Russ injured, it's been Justin Fields. And he got wins of both weeks. Couldn't really get the offense going last week, only 13 points. That is a good Denver defense. Getting production out of Najee, but I don't know if there's enough points to keep moving forward with Justin Fields. It's hard to bench a guy that's winning, but I don't know if that's sustainable. But they have made the investment in the O-line. They want to run the football. They play great defense. They are at home. It's an early game for the Chargers, but I feel like your defense, Mack and Bosa, will create the mistake out of Fields. And even though Herbert's been a little sloppy with the ball, if he eliminates that, go out there and get a huge road win. This would be a huge win for Harbaugh this early into his Chargers tenure.
Yeah, this is the real first major test, even though the Raiders were a pretty good challenge in that first week. But I'll tell you, you're right. These are mirror image teams. One of the matchups that I think is going to be fascinating is going to be Joe Alt, and he's going to be going against TJ Watt. He shut down Max Crosby in week 1 in a very impressive game. And Crosby, of course, is awesome. So is TJ Watt. So that's going to be a key. Can they negate the big play that the Steelers defense thrives on?
Yeah, and it only takes one to totally wreck a game. So that will be an awesome matchup to watch for sure.
All right, moving forward. It is the Houston Texans at the Minnesota Vikings. Texans on the road favored by 2 in this one. Ooh, this is going to be a good football game the way this Vikings team has been playing, huh?
Yeah, also a matchup of the undefeateds. The
Very good.
Texans didn't look great on Sunday night against the Bears. I think that Bears defense is legit, but bummer for the Texans. They're probably not going to have Joe Mixon in this thing. Got the ankle rolled up late in that. But Nico Collins, someone pissed him off at the beginning of the
Woo!
game, and he took it out on that Bears defense. If the Texans had a lot of drives but ended in field goals, if they could have punched some of those in, that score would have looked a lot different. But Will Anderson came on for that Texans defense. They were destroying Caleb Williams. So far, it's only been a couple games, but the Texans haven't been bogged down by the expectation that's on them after how they finished last year. But they're going to play a 2-0 Minnesota Vikings team who just beat the 49ers, dude. Sam Darnold reinventing himself, and I love to see it.
No question about it. It's such a great storyline. The redemption of Sam Darnold, last year was on the Niners, and then they took care of the Niners last week in an impressive game for Darnold. 268, 2 touchdowns, and just 1 pick. They got a great performance out of Justin Jefferson too. That 97-yard touchdown was absolutely outstanding. But just love to see it with Darnold, excuse me. Nice running tandem between Chandler and Aaron Jones last week for over 100 yards between the two of them. This is just a well-coached team under Kevin O'Connell, and that's something that Sam Darnold has really taken to. He's got the talent. He just needs to avoid the mistakes and stuff. This is another tough challenge this week against a really good team, but he's been up to the challenge so far this year. It's going to be an exciting football game.
Yeah, Aaron Jones adds a dynamic to that offense that they didn't have last year. They're doing it without Hawkinson and Addison to this point. So this is a big game for these Vikes. I can't wait to see what happens. All right, Dave, up next, it is the Denver Broncos at the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Bucks are 6.5-point favorites at home, coming off a huge road win in Detroit, Rock City against the Lions. Dude, I'm loving this shaking and baking by Baker Mayfield, dude.
I know you are, dude, and he's been super exciting. But let's start it with the Broncos, the not so exciting. They dropped to 0-2 last week, losing to the Steelers. No, nothing to be ashamed of there. But Bo Nix has struggled to acclimate to NFL defenses. Obviously, the Steelers are a good one, but he tossed 2 picks in week 1, 2 more picks last week. He's yet to throw a pass in the NFL, and he's throwing the ball a lot. So there have been some good things there. You just got to eliminate the mistakes and start cashing in on some touchdowns. On the Buccaneers side, you mentioned it, 2-0 with that huge vengeance win over the Lions last week. Super exciting. Awesome game by Baker, throwing a TD pass and running one in, and a big game out of Chris Godwin, 7 for 117 and a score for Godwin. So all said and done, a really impressive performance, and I'm looking for them to go ahead and do that again this weekend. We'll see.
Yeah, let's get it done, baby. Come on.
All right. Up next, Casey, it is the Chicago Bears at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts are at home, and they are favored by 1 in this one.
Yeah, Caleb's finding life a little bit tricky in the NFL. All that running around stuff, it's not going to work. It's going to get you killed. At SC, you could scramble for 50 yards and just throw it downfield. Oh, you got a guy right there. That don't play here. I think he will develop. We saw signs that looked much better than week 1, so I imagine he'll keep taking that next step. I love this Chicago defense. I love all the weapons he has there. Hopefully he can get Keenan Allen back sooner than later. He's really missing them, but you saw Keenan coaching him up on the sideline. Yeah. So at least he's smart enough to say, hey, this guy's been in the league a long time. He's one of the best to do it. Let me learn from this guy. But there are going to be some growing pains with Caleb and these Bears. And then the Colts, dude, it looked like they had a gift-wrapped win going into Green Bay to play Malik Willis in his first start as a Packer, and they couldn't get anything going. It was just so sloppy. I thought they would go in there and just handle their biz. They didn't let that happen. They dropped one that they shouldn't have. At least it was a road game against an NFC team, but those aren't the games you drop when you're trying to get back to the playoffs. Still a ton of season left, but disappointment for the Colts.
Yeah, I thought so too. Didn't really dominate on the ground like I thought they might in this
Mm-hmm.
game, and just too many mistakes, really, as well. That's a good young Green Bay team. I think maybe we underestimated the fact that the whole
Yeah.
team is a pretty great group there. So interesting.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Up next, this is a pretty sexy game. It is the Philadelphia Eagles at the New Orleans Saints. Saints only 2.5-point favorites. Dave, did you see Monday night when
Woo!
Philly blew their fourth lead in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes or less left? Did you see that part of the game?
I did. In fact, I was getting ready to recap that.
Go ahead. I'll listen to it
Yeah,
again.
if you go back, the last year, they lost all those games towards the tail end of the season and fizzled the whole season out after a great start. This was just a terrible uh, end game scenario for the Eagles, dropping that pass to Saquon with I think 142 on the clock. They
139.
Yeah, so they could have drained it to about a little under a minute, and the difference between a minute and 40 seconds and a minute or 57 seconds is a substantial amount
Oh,
of time, especially for a talented quarterback like Kirk Cousins, a veteran. And it seemed like, yeah, he was a little awkward in the first week, but man, they let him get comfortable. They
mhm.
played it too safe defensively, waiting for them to make a mistake or something, but they just let him roll down the field. They gave up a game that they easily could have won. Uh, that was really, really disappointing. Uh, it wasn't a dominant performance by the Eagles, but they should have cashed in.
Mhm.
It's an NFC opponent. It's an opponent that, who knows, could be going for a wild card spot just like them. So it was a big loss to let that slip away in a game you basically have pretty much wrapped up. You score a touchdown there, it's locked up. Even a field goal, you're still making it real hard on the other team. But man, it'll be tough. And then their prize, they're going to New Orleans to play the team that's lighting up the league.
Oh, yeah, and the Saints won 4 out of 5 last year to finish the season. Week 1, they destroy the Panthers 47-10, whatever it is, but it's just the Panthers. Then they come into Dallas and score touchdowns on their first 6 possessions, dude. That's like 19 straight scoring drives for this offense. So
Wow.
one more week of that, and Clint Kubiak jumps right to the top of head coach hires for next year. Actually, teams are going to start tanking and be like, I want this guy. It is so impressive what's happening with that offense. And dude, I looked up at one point and Derek Carr was averaging 50 yards of completion. So it's insane what he's doing. But Alvin Kamara was absolutely unstoppable in this game against the Cowboys. Obviously, 4 touchdowns. But the way Bijan was running against those Eagles, if the Saints can do that too, at setting up their play action, it's going to be a long damn day for those Eagles, man. And I am excited about what these Saints are. I think because it was the Panthers week 1, people kind of like, oh,
Right.
it's just that. But I feel like this is who the Saints are. Derek Carr, last year struggled a little bit learning the new system, transitioning to a new team. It looks like that stuff is in place now. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, big play weapons, massive running game, a mean defense. 2 weeks in, but dude, the Saints look to be a new standard going forward. Yeah. I think they got a lot of weapons and tools to be a team that nobody wants to mess with.
No doubt. And this week, you're going to have a crowd there that is ramped up and excited. So the home field advantage is going to be pretty significant in
Absolutely.
this particular game.
Ooh.
All right. Up next, we've got the New York Giants at the Cleveland Browns. Browns at home are favored by 6.5 in this one. Talk about it, Casey.
Yeah, I don't know about that cover there. The Giants would have won that game last week, but Graham Gano got hurt and was unable to kick. So
unbelievable.
At that end of game situation, they had to go for it on 4th down rather than just kick the game-winning field goal that would have put that thing away. It kept the fighting Dan Quinn's in that thing, and they ended up losing. But hello, Malik Neighbors, 11 catches, 100-something yards, and a touchdown, and that's with Danny Dimebags. So impressive win for those Giants. And then Cleveland, after getting whooped by the Cowboys in week 1, they come back and they really shut down a a good Jacksonville team, or maybe Jacksonville is not that good. We keep thinking they're going to be, and it just hasn't happened yet. But it's tough in a game like this. I guess you give it to the home team because they're there. It's a great Cleveland defense, but I don't have any long-term plans for either of these teams come later in the season.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's going to be a tough game because certainly the Browns have a very, very solid defense. So they're going to make it pretty tricky on those Giants to put up some points.
All right, Dave, up next, it is the Malik Willis Bowl. It's the Green Bay Packers at the Tennessee Titans, Dave. And the Titans are 2.5-point favorites in this one. I don't get it.
Yeah, this is a strange line, isn't it? Let's talk Packers first. Win over the Colts to get to 1-1 in Malik Willis's first game as a Packer. Surprisingly efficient game. Didn't have to do a lot. 12 of 14 and a touchdown in his debut as a Packer. So really a big game running the ball out of Josh Jacobs. 32 carries, 151. That's the formula that everybody knew they were going to follow, and they were able to execute it anyways. Obviously, they're going to try and run the ball. So that means they can run against 8 in the box. So Titans on the other side dropped to 0-2. They were majorly mistake prone in week 1. This week they lose to the Jets, and it was a close one despite over 100 yards from Tony Pollard, both rushing and receiving. He had a nice game doing what they expect him to do there. And 2 TDs from Calvin Ridley, 1 rushing and 1 receiving, and a really miraculous reception that somehow made it through the 2 defensive players. But this team got another punt blocked. That's 2 weeks in a row with a blocked punt. It's almost like always if you're a team that's struggling, it's like, oh man, and the special teams has got us too. So they got to get that shored up. It's a young quarterback, obviously. This is a growing season.
Dude, he's got to remove the catastrophic mistakes from his game. Interceptions happen, but when you're getting sacked, don't throw the ball backwards.
Don't make it worse.
You just threw away 3 points right there. So he's got to eliminate that. Even coaches on the sideline said, "What the F are you doing, bro? You cannot do that in the NFL." He's got to figure that out quick, or he will not be their starting quarterback much longer. He's got a lot of talent, but you cannot make those stupid mistakes. It doesn't work in the NFL, dude. Come on. You're better than that.
Yeah. Okay. Moving along to the late slot. It is the Miami Dolphins at the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks at home. One of the surprise teams. They are favored by 4 in this one.
Yeah, we mentioned.
I guess it's not a surprise.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised it's not more. We mentioned there's no Tua in this game. It's going to start with Skylar Thompson. They did bring Tyler Huntley in, so Skylar, I don't think can win this game, but I don't know how much of a look they give at him because he was the draft pick. So they just brought in Huntley. Huntley's obviously a more mature and well-versed player, so they're going to look at saving their season pretty soon. I haven't looked at what their upcoming schedule is, but I'm chalking this up as an L already, so that probably means that the Seahawks are going to lose. But they have a very small window to get it going right. I think Huntley can probably do what they need. I'm not sure Skylar Thompson there is a good quarterback in college, but it takes a while. So the Dolphins here at a crossroads without Tua in the lineup. So this is a tough ask for anybody to go to Seattle and play this Seahawks team. But Seahawks look like they've turned a corner too and are going to be a legit squad this year.
Yeah, I wonder if by the time Tua has the decision to come back or not come back, if the Dolphins will still be a viable team at that point, if they can scrap together enough wins. But let's talk about this Seattle team because an impressive 2-0 start for the Seahawks, dude. Geno Smith is still ripping it up, man. 33 of 44, 327, and a touchdown last week. Not getting a lot out of the ground game with Charbonnet, and but it's DK Metcalf and Smith and Jigba are phenomenal together, man. 129 yards for Metcalf in the score. Smith and Jigba 117. So they are lighting it up through the air. This Seahawks squad, last week they get the W against the Patriots team, which is a better team than we thought they were going to be for sure. This thing went into overtime, and it easily could have been a Seattle loss, but they found a way to fight through it, get it into overtime, and then get the game-winning field goal. So an impressive performance by the Seahawks, and now they're handed an opportunity to go to 3-0.
Yeah, and kind of like the same way Pacheco runs, Kenneth Walker III runs the same way. He missed last week with the oblique. Hopefully he's coming back this week, but that guy has to find a way just to play every week. I know it's tough at running back, but they can't afford to have him out because he adds such a special dynamic to that offense when he's healthy. All right, Dave, up next, a couple teams that the Chargers just beat the crap out of and threw them in the trash can. I'm talking Carolina Panthers at the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Raiders are 5-point favorites.
Yes, and well, it's good news the Raiders are facing the Panthers, who are arguably the worst team in the league. But it's bad news because after that performance, the first 2 weeks out of second-year quarterback Bryce Young, they decided to pull the plug on that experiment and let him sit on the sidelines and think it over for a while. He was looking like he was a beat-down person, emotionally, whatever you want to say, and that's not good. Andy Dalton, though, has got another chance here, and this guy can sling it around. He's got plenty of starts under his belt, so he's ready to go out there and give this team a legitimate chance to win. They're hoping for a spark. They got beat 73-13 by the combined score of the first 2 weeks, so they haven't done anything on defense or offense to really make you believe that they're going to beat this Raiders squad. The only hope is Dalton gives them that spark that they need. Raiders, on the other side, huge win last week, getting them to 1-1 after losing to the Chargers week 1. But that was a win against the Ravens. So, and they stole that thing away from the Ravens, and the Ravens are a strong team as well. Obviously, we think of them as a playoff caliber team. But it was a dominance performance again by Max Crosby. He was held in check in first week. Last week, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, whatever it is. They still need to get the running game going, the Raiders do. They've only got 2 rushing first downs all season. Piss poor, according to Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, pretty good assessment right there. And Dave, I don't think they benched Bryce Young to help him. I think it's that hothead Tepper just can't keep his meddling fingers off of his little toy. That's what billionaires do.
Yep.
Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Brian Burns, all uber talented players that they just shit canned and traded for a bag of peanuts. Dumb.
Doesn't look like they're heading in the right direction, does it?
No.
All right, up next, Casey, it's the San Francisco 49ers on the road to play our Los Angeles Rams, who have been banged up. And the Niners on the road are favored by 7.
Yeah, dude, and the Niners, they kind of got out-Ninered last week in Minnesota. Such an impressive win for those Vikings. The defense was really good. Fred Warner made another outstanding play in that game. It's just become commonplace for this guy. No Debo for at least this week, maybe a couple more. It's looking like he could miss multiple games. Brandon Ayuk just trying to get back up to speed and get acclimated after his hold in through training camp. Jawan Jennings, fantasy might be the free agent pickup someone's looking for to kind of take over that Debo role. He won't get the run plays that Debo did, but receiving wise, he's been a pretty legitimate weapon. George Kittle opened up, had a pretty solid game last week too. But dude, Mason has been absolutely killing it, dude. And you're right. You just plug in any running back. Oh, hi, I'm Jordan Mason. Now I'm one of the best backs in the league there. So
they're going to be rushing right now.
Yeah, the little pissed off about losing that game. And they've really had the Rams number lately. And as you mentioned, dude, these Rams are all kind of banged up. No Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp. So offensive line is a little bit twisted. Matt Stafford, man, he might take a beating in this thing. I don't know that the Rams are going to be able to get enough points going in this game to hang with the Niners. It is divisional, so anything can happen, but it's a tough start for these Rams. Close week 1, and they can get them blowed out by the Cardinals last week. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Is that possible? They could move Stafford sometime in the season if it's going
Rams
poorly.
Do all kinds of crazy stuff like that, Casey. So, yeah.
Stafford to the Dolphins?
Ooh.
Ooh, sexy. Ow!
Red alert, trade rumors.
Oh, baby.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how I feel, Dave. I don't feel
Yeah.
good. It's the Baltimore Ravens coming to Dallas against my Dallas Cowboys, and this one is a pick 'em.
Yeah, we haven't seen a pick 'em in a while. It seems like
Mm-mm.
that's pretty rare that Vegas just gets like frozen up like that. I don't know what to do. But I'll tell you what, Casey, not a good time, I guess, to face the Ravens. Although you're at home, that's good. But an 0-2 Ravens team, man, can you imagine them dropping to 0-3? We'll see if your boys can take care of business. Lamar, had a pretty decent game last week, 247 yards and passing and a touchdown, not to mention 45 rushing yards on top of that. They've been running the ball well. Derrick Henry, 84 yards in the score. Zay Flowers with a nice game. And, Lamar has done a great job sort of spreading the ball around, like a lot of different dudes grabbing catches. Not enough going to my guy, Mark Andrews, though. But Zay Flowers has really shown that he's the legit dude that they wanted in that first round, the explosive player that they were looking for. But man, I'll tell you, this Ravens defense, maybe I don't know if it's too soon to say there's maybe a step back having lost McDonald to the Seahawks as their head coach, their former defensive coordinator. They've got all the pieces in place, but they aren't quite as playmaking on the defensive side, disruptive on the defensive side. We'll see how they can fare against your Dallas Cowboys, another team obviously looking for a W after last week.
And if the Ravens don't just turn around and hand it to Derrick Henry 30 times, that's the dumbest team in the league. Because if they watched what Alvin Kamara
Right.
did to my Cowboys last week, like, I know the formula that's going to work in this game. Cowboys could not stop the run at all. Well, they couldn't stop anything. As we mentioned, the Saints scored 6 straight possessions in the first half. It made it impossible to play catch up. Dallas was there converting field goals instead of touchdowns. And when you do that, the margins spread like this. So hopefully, though, that defense is embarrassed by what they put on the field last week. I mean, they were getting blown off the line. It wasn't just one or two guys here. There was a ton of guys making mistakes. I know there's a lot of young guys playing, but there's no excuse to get run over like they did. And then you flip it over on offense, it's the same problem. They can't run the football. So maybe they would have stuck with it a little bit longer last week had the Saints not scored 40 points in the first half or whatever it was. So it just took them out of it. And when you're that one-dimensional, it's almost impossible to win football games. So Dak and CD still kind of working the timing out there, but there's nobody on this Dallas team that scares you besides CD. Cooks has had flashes here, but with Jake Ferguson out, Schoonmaker doesn't have this same skill set. He played pretty well, but he doesn't threaten you. Ferguson's practicing this week. That's a pretty good sign. Maybe he gets back in there. And if you ask Jera, he says no, but there is a chance that Dalvin Cook could be elevated from the practice squad to maybe, put some life into this run game. But so far, dude, they are not running the football and they're getting run all over. And that was giving me flashbacks to the Green Bay game in the playoffs last year. That was very similar, dude. So, but that was last week. Let's see what happens this week. But I expect a heavy dose of the King.
No question about it. Okay, moving into the Sunday evening slot, Casey, it is the Detroit Lions at the Arizona Cardinals, and the Lions on the road are favored by 3 in this one.
Yeah, the Lions coming off a pretty disappointing loss at the hands of the Bucs at home last week. So much expectation on this Lions team. It kind of feels like a Super Bowl or bust for them, but I'm not writing them off after losing a tough game to a Bucs team that's playing pretty well. And they could have been a little spent from the week before going into overtime against those Rams. Little worried about the Amon-Ra St. Brown injury, but I'll tell you what, dude, teams that got Jameson Williams in their fantasy drafts late, that is going to be the steal of the season. This guy is finally rounding into form, and I expect big things out of him as the season progresses. And the Lions, they're still going to be fine. I still think they're going to be in the playoffs. No one's going undefeated anymore, so they just got to tighten it up a little bit. And it's going to be an interesting game to see what happens him going on the road because Kyler looks like he's rounding back into form. And what they did to the Rams last week, is this a thing to come? Is this what the Cardinals are going to be?
Wow, I'll tell you what, they're just 1-1, but man, last week they found their rhythm. Kyler was outstanding, 266 and 3 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, a 158.3 perfect quarterback rating with his 17 out of 21. So James Conner joining in on the fun with 122 rush yards and a score, and Marvin Harrison a little bit late in his introducing himself to the NFL, but he has arrived. 4 catches, 130 yards, and 2 scores for Marvin Harrison Jr. He just has this air about him that makes him look like he's already there. He's not
Yeah.
a rookie at all. Uh, these guys were clicking on all cylinders last week, making all kinds of things happen. Um, the defense is playing exciting football as well, holding the Rams to just 10 points and just kind of just beating them up. Um, this is going to be a really exciting football game. Lions on the road, favored by 3. I am fascinated to see if the Cardinals can play like they did last week, because if they do, it's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, another week like that from Kyler, and the whole league will be on notice. That's exciting. That's fun football, regardless what happens to them. It's fun product to watch.
All right. Up next, it is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Atlanta Falcons, dude. Chiefs on the road, favored by 3.5.
And dude, wasn't last week just what the Chiefs do?
Ye-
Like in a
Yep.
game, kind of getting beat the whole thing, not doing anything very
Yep.
well. Oh, and here's at the end, we're just gonna kick the game-winning field goal with
Yeah.
no time left, and the Bengals are just like WTF here. But so far it's not been great between Mahomes and Kelsey. We'll see as that progresses. Rossi Rice looks like he's a star on the rise. He's managed to make big plays week in and week out. But we mentioned it at the top of the show. No Isaiah Pacheco, dude. That guy has been the motor for this offense for the last couple of seasons. So
Big time.
you might be able to replace his production, but you can't replace him. You
Yeah.
mentioned the running style.
Yes.
The backs on the squad are
Ferocious.
not that. And I don't know how close Edwards-Helaire is to coming back there. So Carson Steele, they said they liked this guy a lot in the preseason. We haven't seen him, so I'm sure we're going to get a heavy dose of that. And then Samaje Perine, he he's not been the guy on where he's been. He's been in
Yeah.
backfield with some good guys. Maybe this is the opportunity that he's been looking for. Very
Mhm.
solid runner. Had one of the most prolific days ever as a Sooner in college. So did I mention he's my Facebook friend, Dave? A couple of times before, maybe.
That's
So
really nice.
we'll see what Samaje can do there. But the Chiefs, dude, I don't care what they do in the regular season, because I know come playoff time they'll round into form. But I did like what I saw from the Falcons last game, so that at least makes this thing seem pretty interesting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It is going to be pretty dang interesting. Obviously, the Falcons stole a game last week, basically, but they earned it because that
Yeah,
last drive, you don't, that if Kirk Cousins was rusty, he knocked the rust off with that last drive, and he looked
he
nice
he
on
had
that
some
last drive.
zip on that ball, dude. He was throwing it. I liked what I saw to Cousins
Yeah,
too.
no doubt about it. 241, 2 touchdowns, and a 117 quarterback rating there. The combination of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier is a really nice tandem of backs. The explosiveness of Robinson, he was just under 100 yards, but over 50 yards for Algier as well. So a nice 1-2 punch there. And seems like Drake London is kind of coming into his own
Mm-hmm.
here with better quarterback play,
Yeah,
perhaps. So moving forward, hopefully this weekend they can pick up where they left off in that final 2 minutes or so of last week, and then carry that on. They're at home. They're facing a Chiefs team. Um, you know that obviously they can beat anybody at any time, and you can't. You have to beat them. You just have
yeah.
to finish them off, and you can't make mistakes. So we'll see. But this should be an exciting Sunday night football game.
Yeah, I think Darnell Mooney's out there floating on the free agent wire as well. So that might be a player that
Yeah,
you
and he
want
had a nice
to
game
check
too last
into.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the way, if that's what Bijan is doing, that looked very similar to what he was doing at Texas. Hopefully he's made that transition, and that's what he does moving forward.
Okay. Alrighty.
Dude, before we get into this, the
Yes.
staggered Monday Night Football crap
Ugh.
is so stupid. Split them. Okay, that's my rant.
No, I mean, I have to second that, dude, because I got two TVs, but it's they keep going to one game and the other, and it's totally impossible to sync them up because they're not in
Yeah,
sync with each other
no,
perfectly, and it's annoying that they're showing me constantly something from the other game. Just give
yeah,
us, separate the damn games out. Give us
yeah,
a break here. All right, Casey, up next. It is the first of the two games, or the early of the two staggered. What are they, 40 minutes or 50
yeah.
minutes
It's
apart or something?
so dumb. I hate it.
Okay. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Buffalo Bills. Bills at home favored by 5 in this one. Talk about it.
Dude, I mean, I'm not completely giving up on the Jags, but how long have we been talking about their potential? They're
Yeah.
gonna be this.
And the
They're gonna
Golden
be,
Boy.
yeah, that generational talent, and it's not all on him, but as a team, they don't play well when the pressure is the most. I mean, just haven't seen it yet, so it's very frustrating. I can only imagine how Jaguar fan feels about it. And then Buffalo, dude, they look like they're getting it all together. We worried about the receiving core when they ran Diggs out of town, and I'm still not sure they're getting the production that they need. But they have Josh Allen, and it feels like he's actually elevated his game to yet
Yeah.
another level. So we talked about maybe McDermott being on the hot seat early, but so ride Josh Allen until the wheels come off, and maybe the Bills get over the hump this year because they look pretty damn good so far, just a couple weeks in. But I love what I'm seeing out of them.
I couldn't agree more, Casey. In fact, Josh Allen, like you said, has taken his game up, if that's even possible.
Mm-hmm.
He's the early MVP candidate right
100%.
now for the NFL. The way he's playing, he's just basically taken the team on his back. That group of younger receivers and stuff, he is crushing it. And just when he needs it, he's running. So
Yeah. And then when you're watching this game, 45 minutes in, you can go ahead and turn it over to the Washington Commandos at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals 7.5-point favorites at home.
yeah, Commanders get to 1-1, beating the Giants last week. It was a nice game from Jaden Daniels. We saw him run a lot in the first game. And this was a better passing performance,
Yeah.
23 of 29. That's a pretty impressive
Mm-hmm.
percentage for 226 in a big game from Brian Robinson with 133 rush yards there. So that's a formula that is going to get this Commanders team in some football games. Moving over to the Bengals, who dropped to 0-2 after that heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs. That included late, costly couple of penalties late in that game,
Mm-hmm.
including Chase saying something to the officials, costing them 15 yards when they were on
Yep.
offense. And then on the other side, when we're basically talking about the last play of the game,
Yep.
essentially, and it turns out to be a pass interference committed by their defense, setting up the game-winning field goal so that the Bengals can drop to 0-2 in a very, very disappointing and heartbreaking manner. They are in a situation right now that becomes kind of a must win for them. Again, they're in a very tough division, even though the Ravens are 0-2. You do not want to dump it to 0-3 if you think you're going to win the division and avoid a very difficult road trip in the playoffs if you even make it.
Yeah, dude. And starting 0-2, you just burn through some of the malaise you can use later in the season when you
Yep.
are all banged up and, kind of need a little rest. But
Yeah,
obviously, Chase isn't up to speed. He looked better this week, and
he did.
still no T. Higgins. Got to get that sorted out. And maybe a Commandos team is the best thing when you haven't won a game yet,
Yeah.
and they'll welcome Jaden Daniels to the jungle where they have fun in games. They actually have everything you want, Dave, and they know the names.
Okay, that sounds great. Casey, I'll tell you what, the doubleheader Monday night, we both disapprove, but
Yeah.
they should be a couple of good football games, hopefully.
And at least we're getting 5 afternoon games, but you can't, give us 5 when there's not 10 in the morning. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
sort this out. There's too many morning games on Sunday, too few afternoon. And then if
yeah,
you're giving us a doubleheader on Monday night, start one at 4, start one at 7. Come on, do the math, people.
it's simple.
Simple.
All right, folks, that is going to do it. So many ways to check out the Football Dudes Trend Zone available for subscription on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Get the Trend Zone.
Hey, I'm into it. And go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for the Football Dudes. We are there. Like us on Instagram and Facebook. Follow us on, this is the first time I'm saying it on the show, Dave. Follow us on X at Football Dudes LA.
Formerly known as Twitter. Also, make sure you tag us on all social media platforms. Or, folks, just head on over to footballdudes.com. It's there for you. That is going to do it for this episode of the Trend Zone. Please enjoy week 3 of the NFL. We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football.